The euro fell to its lowest level versus the dollar in more than 2 years, while the pound hit an 8-month low, showing continued concern over Europe's economic prospects. The single currency fell as much as 0.5% to $1.03, its lowest level since November 2022, increasing its overall slump since late September to almost 8%. Meanwhile, the pound fell 1% to $1.24, its lowest level since May. The euro's decline has been spurred by concerns that export-oriented European economies will suffer as a result of U.S. trade restrictions, as well as anticipation that the European Central Bank will cut interest rates more aggressively than the Federal Reserve. Political instability in the Eurozone's main member countries has increased pressure. Furthermore, the European energy crisis has been aggravated by a stop in the delivery of Russia's low-cost natural gas to the area, which has been compounded by disruptions in Norwegian gas shipments. These issues, together with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, have put further strain on the European economy, weakening the euro and exacerbating economic instability throughout the EU. High energy prices, as a result of these variables, have raised industrial production costs, reduced consumer buying power, and heightened inflation, exacerbating the region's economic problems. In this video, we look at the causes of the EU crisis, including geopolitics, energy difficulties, and international relations. Energy crisis and economy. The halt of Russian gas supplies to the European Union, along with problems in Norwegian gas delivery, has had a substantial impact on the EU economy, contributing to the euro's decline. The disruption in Russian gas supplies has resulted in electricity shortages in certain places. For example, due to the stoppage of Russian gas supply, Transnistria, a breakaway area of Moldova, was forced to close practically all industrial firms. This predicament highlights the bigger problems confronting companies throughout Europe that rely substantially on dependable energy supplies. Increased energy prices. The discontinuation of Russian gas transportation has led to increased energy expenditures for households and companies. Countries such as Hungary and Slovakia, who rely significantly on Russian gas, are facing rising energy costs, resulting in lower secondary transit earnings and possible public unhappiness. Economic shrinkage. The energy crisis has caused a decrease in the EU's economic output. The International Monetary Fund anticipated that a cutoff of Russian gas would result in a drop in GDP for the EU, signaling a severe recession. Countries that rely heavily on Russian gas, such as Germany and Italy, are especially susceptible. The energy crisis has also impacted the euro's value. High oil and gas costs have resulted in a euro devaluation and increased imported inflation. The rising cost of energy imports has strained the EU's trade balance, putting downward pressure on the euro exchange rate. Investor confidence is dwindling amid political unrest in Germany and France, worsened by concerns about potential U.S. tariffs under President Trump's administration. The euro is dangerously close to parity with the dollar, showing its troubles as the European Central Bank, ECB, prepares to slash interest rates significantly to combat economic weakness. Despite inflation falling below 2%, reductions in both the industrial and services sectors point to more serious systemic issues. With bond rates falling and economic vulnerabilities rising, the Eurozone is at a critical crossroads that might lead to prolonged turmoil. The energy crisis, triggered by the stoppage of Russian gas supplies, has had far-reaching economic ramifications for the European Union, particularly for heavily reliant nations like Germany and Italy. Germany, the EU's largest economy, has been heavily impacted, with GDP dropping by 0.3% in the fourth quarter of 2023. This marked the start of its first 2-year recession since 2004, with more contractions expected until 2024. Germany's industrial sector, which was highly reliant on cheap Russian gas for competitiveness, has seen production slowdowns and cost increases. Major firms, notably Volkswagen, have expressed concern about energy shortages endangering their operations. Inflation caused by surging energy prices reached 8% in 2022 and fell slightly to 7% in 2023, eroding consumer buying power and raising operational expenses for companies. Italy, which is equally reliant on Russian gas, has seen a notable slowing in economic development. While its GDP downturn has been less severe than Germany's, overriding issues like as energy security and growing expenses have slowed economic growth. Italy has also been compelled to speed attempts to acquire alternate energy sources, putting additional strain on its finances. Both nations demonstrate the EU's overall susceptibility to external energy shocks, which have destabilized economies and raised the financial burden on individuals and companies. The recent fall of the French government has added a layer of political uncertainty, exacerbating current economic issues in France and posing possible hazards to the European Union (EU) economy. Prior to the government's fall, France's economy was already struggling, with a substantial budget deficit estimated at 6% of GDP, more than double the EU's 3% limit. Political turmoil has worsened fiscal concerns, resulting in higher borrowing rates and market volatility. Notably, the interest rate on France's benchmark 10-year government bond reached levels equal to Greece's, indicating increased market worry. The industrial sector has also been negatively impacted. In December, French industrial activity declined at the sharpest rate since mid-2020, with the Purchasing Managers' Index, PMI, falling from 43.1 in November to 41.9. This fall highlights the worsening industrial crisis, which is exacerbated by political uncertainty. While France's political turmoil has aroused worries, the immediate economic impact on the EU's overall economy looks to be modest and restricted. The European Commission is constantly watching the situation, but has stated that the instability has had little impact on the European economy as a whole. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has warned that a total suspension of Russian gas supply might cause a substantial recession in the EU, lowering GDP and increasing economic vulnerabilities. The ripple effects of the oil crisis have resulted in rising inflation, higher production costs, and lower industrial output, all of which have undermined general economic stability. This issue has underlined the EU's reliance on Russian gas and the pressing need to diversify energy supplies. Before delving into the newest events, it's crucial to study the euro's history. The euro is the official currency of the Eurozone, which is made up of 20 European Union (EU) member states. Its establishment was a significant milestone in European economic integration, with the goal of promoting frictionless commerce, economic stability, and political unification throughout Europe. Origins and development. The concept of a united European currency goes back to the 1960s and was meant to improve economic cooperation among European states. This idea gained popularity with the 1992 Maastricht Treaty, which established the Economic and Monetary Union, or EMU, and defined the requirements for adopting a unified currency. On January 1st, 1999, the euro was launched as an electronic currency for banking and financial activities, replacing the European Currency Unit, ECU, at a 1-to-1 ratio. During this time, national currencies remained in use, but their exchange rates were permanently set against the euro. Euro banknotes and coins were introduced on January 1st, 2002, in 12 EU nations, marking the greatest monetary transfer in history. National currencies were gradually phased out, and by March 2002, the euro had completely supplanted them as legal money. Expansion of Eurozone. Since its inception, the Eurozone has expanded to include more EU member states that have satisfied the Maastricht Treaty's convergence criteria. By 2024, 20 EU nations had embraced the euro, with others expected to follow suit provided the essential circumstances were met. Economic impact and challenges. The euro has expedited cross-border trade, increased pricing transparency, and brought economic stability to the eurozone. However, it has experienced problems, such as the late 2000s sovereign debt crisis, which put the eurozone countries' strength and solidarity to the test. Historical challenges for the euro. Since its introduction in 1999, the euro has seen many substantial drops, each caused by distinct economic and geopolitical circumstances. First, during the global financial crisis of 2008, the euro plummeted to around $1.25 due to worldwide financial upheaval. Concerns over the soundness of eurozone financial institutions and the European Central Bank's monetary policies throughout the crisis prompted investors to favor safer assets, increasing the US dollar and devaluing the euro. Next, from 2010 to 2012, the euro fell to roughly $1.20 as markets grappled with fiscal uncertainty in nations such as Greece, Ireland, and Portugal. Despite interventions by the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund, concerns about defaults and the eurozone's viability resulted in considerable capital outflows and additional euro devaluation. The euro eventually reached parity with the US currency in 2022, the first time in 2 decades. This was the result of a mix of eurozone economic issues, an energy crisis exacerbated by geopolitical tensions, and divergent monetary policies between the European Central Bank and the US Federal Reserve. The energy crisis, notably the high costs of replenishing gas storage as Europe reduced its reliance on Russian supplies, put extra pressure on the euro. The escalation of the Ukraine-Russia war, underlined by the employment of long-range missiles, has increased geopolitical tensions and aroused major worries about regional stability and economic consequences, including challenges to euro stability. In November 2024, Ukraine increased its military operations by deploying Western-supplied long-range missiles, marking the first approved deployment of U.S. Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATAKMS, against Russian targets. The United Kingdom also allowed the use of British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles. On November 20th, Ukraine launched 6 ATAKMS missiles against a Russian military installation in Bryansk, causing significant damage to important infrastructure. This was followed by more Storm Shadow attacks, which escalated the war. Russia promptly replied by declaring the successful test of the Oreshnik, a hypersonic ballistic missile capable of Mach 10 speeds. Russia then conducted a retaliatory Oreshnik missile attack on a military base in Dnipro, Ukraine, dramatically increasing its military capabilities and desire to fight Western-supplied weaponry. Putin's words following the assaults underscored his intention to target not only Ukrainian military sites, but also those in nations that supply arms to Kiev, adding a dangerous dimension to the war. The deployment of modern missile systems by both sides highlights Western governments' growing engagement in the conflict. This increased participation, which includes direct military backing and modern weaponry, has heightened concerns about broader regional instability. The economic consequences are becoming clearer, particularly for the eurozone. Rising tensions and ongoing confrontations have already contributed to increased market volatility. Investors concerned about the possibility of further escalation are starting to depart from eurozone markets, significantly weakening the euro. As trust dwindles amid the fighting, the currency, which is inextricably linked to the region's economic and geopolitical stability, comes under growing downward pressure. Countries surrounding the war, notably as Poland and Finland, are considerably increasing their defense capabilities in response to rising security worries. Poland has launched the East Shield Project, a comprehensive defensive strategy to secure its eastern border with Russia and Belarus. This program represents the most significant expansion of Poland's border fortifications since 1945. The East Shield project will involve the building of around 800 kilometers, 500 miles, of fortifications, including anti-tank barriers, trenches, and other obstacles to deter unauthorized crossings and potential military assaults. Poland is also deploying cutting-edge airspace monitoring technology, such as AI-powered surveillance systems, anti-drone capabilities, and electronic warfare measures to detect and counter numerous threats. The project also includes the construction of forward operating bases, logistical hubs, and support facilities to facilitate the fast deployment and sustainment of military personnel throughout border regions. The Polish government has invested around 10 billion zloty, 2.3 billion euros, to this project, with completion projected by 2028. Furthermore, Poland's defense spending is expected to rise to 4.7% of GDP by 2025, demonstrating its commitment to national and European security. As a new NATO member, Finland is beefing up its defense capabilities to satisfy alliance requirements and address regional security concerns. Finland wants to buy 64 Lockheed Martin F-35A Lightning II multi-role fighters, with delivery beginning in 2026. This 8.4 billion euro expenditure intends to replace Finland's outdated FA-18 Hornet fleet and dramatically improve its air combat capability. Finland is procuring new armament to bolster its F-35 fleet, including up to 150 AGM-88G new anti-radiation guided missiles, extended range and joint air-to-surface. Standoff missiles extended range. These weapons will allow the F-35 to engage ground-based air defenses and other strategic targets. The Finnish military firm Patria has been granted permission to construct an assembly plant for the F-35A, assuring effective maintenance and support for the new fleet. Finland's defense budget for 2024 is scheduled at over 6.5 billion euros, indicating a significant investment on current security requirements. While defense spending is predicted to fall to 1.99% of GDP by 2027, present expenditures show Finland's determination to bolster its defensive posture in response to changing regional threats. Investors' fears and volatility. The growing military war and geopolitical instability have weakened investor confidence. The euro has plummeted to a two-year low due to geopolitical concerns and economic challenges. If the battle escalates, investors may leave from Eurozone markets, heightening volatility and placing more negative pressure on the euro. Tariffs in the United States and their impact. Donald Trump's re-election in November 2024 has accelerated the euro's slide, which is presently at $1.05, a 13-month low. Trump's planned 10% tax on EU imports and a 60% duty on Chinese goods have sparked fears about the Eurozone's export-dependent businesses, notably in the automobile and pharmaceutical sectors. Analysts believe that these taxes might cut Europe's GDP by 1.5%, or 260 billion euros. Meanwhile, the US dollar has risen due to expected economic growth, with the dollar index reaching a 13-month high. The forecast for the European Union's economy seems to be plagued with uncertainty and difficulty on numerous fronts. The oil crisis, geopolitical difficulties, and strained transatlantic relations have exacerbated economic vulnerabilities, making recovery and growth prospects more uncertain. The EU's energy problem remains one of the most critical challenges, aggravated by the disruption of Russian gas supply and rising global energy prices. This crisis has had a devastating impact on sectors and people, raising production costs and causing massive inflation. Higher energy prices have reduced consumer spending power, lowering disposable income and slowing overall economic growth. Inflation, which has hit historic highs in many EU member states, continues to put pressure on central banks to tighten monetary policy, potentially restricting GDP even more. The persistent uncertainty has reduced investments and job creation in energy-intensive industries. while initiatives to switch to renewable energy involve significant financial and logistical commitments that will take years to reap rewards. Donald Trump's re-election in the United States might signal a fresh wave of transatlantic trade hostilities. During his prior term, Trump imposed taxes on European imports, and his administration's protectionist posture deteriorated EU-US economic relations. A return to such policies might result in more taxes on important EU exports, worsening the trade balance and affecting crucial industries like automotive, agricultural, and aerospace. This scenario may increase economic uncertainty, disrupt supply chains, and discourage foreign investment, further impacting on the EU's economic prospects. The protracted conflict in Ukraine has imposed major financial and logistical burdens on the EU. As one of Ukraine's primary sponsors, the EU has provided significant military, humanitarian, and economic help. While these activities are consistent with the EU's geopolitical and humanitarian ideals, they have stretched public finances and redirected resources away from domestic issues. The ongoing fighting not only maintains these financial strains, but also exacerbates energy and food supply shortages, hindering economic recovery attempts. That's it for this video. Thank you for viewing this video. We appreciate you visiting us today. If our work resonated with you or inspired you, please consider showing your support by liking it and subscribing to keep connected with our community. We greatly appreciate your support. You may watch another video from our channel, which is currently displayed on the screen.